we spent our week talking about, for those of you who are here, for those of you who are not here, I'm going to tell you what we talked about. We talked about gratitude. You know, what is it that God has done in our lives, looking back, and what is it that we're grateful for? So I thought that this week it would be kind of cool to talk about what is our response to that. You know, looking at what has God done in our lives, and how do we respond to that? You know, and sometimes it's easy. I think about, you know, right after I got baptized a month or so ago, and the guys who got baptized yesterday. Sometimes it seems like it's black and white. You know, I've seen Jesus, He saved me, and so I'm willing to do whatever, throw it all out on the mat for Him. But there are other times when it's not quite so black and white, when it's not quite so clear. And that's where I've been the last month or so. As I told you guys a while ago, back in August, Jill and I told her parents about her history of sexual abuse by her grandfather. And they've really been struggling with that. They don't know how to handle it. And at one point, I approached her dad just to see where he was with it. And he reacted really badly. He kind of went off. I heard about it third hand. It wasn't a normal way of him handling things. And it really hurt me by that. Moving further into that, before this all happened, we had made plans to go hunting this fall. I was going to go over to Ohio and go hunting with him, do some bow hunting earlier in the fall, and then do some gun hunting in December. The bow hunting kind of fell out because we were kind of awkward there. But then this whole thing of gun hunting kind of came up. And it was really, really awkward because I didn't know how to approach him, and frankly I was intimidated about it. And so I started seeking out God on it. I started saying, okay, God, I'm going to do what I know to do. I'm going to go to community. I talked about it at tables. I'm going to start praying. I'm going to get on my face about it and see where you want me to go. I'm going to talk to my big brothers about it. And it was kind of weird because God didn't really give me an answer one way or another. And since I've been a Christ follower for a long time, so all of 6 months, but I've never been in that position before. You know, it's always been black and white, and that's kind of my personality as an engineer, is black and white. And so I really struggled with that. You know, and so I started to look for other signs of kind of logistics, and it seemed like in some ways God is opening doors. You know, my dad let me use a shotgun. He even bought me a new scope for it because the old one had busted, and for my birthday, he bought me a new scope, and then Jill and I got some money that we weren't expecting that was going to pay for the cost of the trip. And so I kind of made this decision. You know, I didn't really hear from God, but I was like, okay, the circumstances are good, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go on this trip. We're going to do this thing. But I still didn't have that peace. There was still an uneasiness there. And so then I found myself about a week before I was supposed to go, on the Sunday before I was supposed to go, I went out to a farm with Dave Hockaday, and we started to sight in my shotgun to get ready to go. And I couldn't get it to sight in. And we tried everything. We could not get the gun to sight in. There's something wrong with the barrel or the scope or something. And so I called up my father-in-law. I was like, hey, do you have an extra gun I can use? And he thought his buddy had a gun, but the next day he called and he said, hey, my buddy sold the gun. And so I'm sitting here, we're supposed to go hunting on a Thursday, I'm sitting here on a Monday night, getting ready. It was actually the last time I talked. I'm getting ready to speak, and I'm just like, God, you know, what's going on here? I guess you've closed the door, so I made the decision that I wasn't going to go. You know, at that point, I'd gone through the process, right? So I'd gone to community, spent time on my face, spent time looking in the Bible, trying to figure out what was going on. But even after that, even after I made that decision, I still had this kind of deep-seated unease about it, just not any peace. I still didn't understand where God was there. I think there's a reason for that. I think that God had me on a journey because He wanted to take me to this point where all the things that I was using to make this decision, you know, the logistics. There's also an element of the whole reason I wanted to go was to build this relationship with my father-in-law, and whether or not there was going to be a good environment for that. He wanted to kind of strip all that away and take me to the point where I would be dependent on one thing, Him and His will, as to how I made this decision. But that was a journey for me. And I think that sometimes that's the way it is. Even when we're doing the right things, even when we're putting ourselves out there, we're going to God, we're saying, is there anything separating us, that reason that maybe I'm not hearing from you? Maybe it's a thing of, maybe I'm not spending time with you. Maybe it's there's some sin. But moving through those things and seeking His will. But sometimes I think He wants to take us to a different level, and not just give us the easy answer. He wants us to take us on a journey. And so I guess I want to put that question out there. Where is it that you guys are on a journey? And where are places where maybe God's not, you're having a hard time seeing where God is at? Maybe it's with family, with wives, kids, maybe around the holidays. That's always a tough time with families. We want to bring God into it, but how do we do that? Or maybe it's at work. We want to be excellent. We want to be good with what God's given us, but how do we bring Him into that? What places are we struggling that we just maybe don't feel like God's saying anything? And so I want to start that out by looking at a guy in the Bible who God brings on this journey. Who's very human, and it starts back at a time back when Israel. This is before they had a king. They were living in the land of Palestine, and they were mainly farmers. So they would raise crops. They would raise some grapes, some wheat, and every summer, these nomads they were living in modern day Israel. These nomads from the Arabian Peninsula would come up and just basically camp out huge armies and destroy all their crops. And so the Israelites were driven up into the hills, and this happened because they had turned their backs on God. And so eventually they turn around to God and they cry out, "God, save us!" And so God raises up this guy Gideon to be their leader. And God just comes to Gideon. He sends an angel to him and he says, "Gideon, I want you to go, and I want you to destroy the Midianites." Those are the raiders that were coming in. And that's what he tells them. He says, "I just want you to go to destroy them. I've commanded you to do it, so go do it." And Gideon is, at this point, I'm projecting, but probably a little bit overwhelmed. He's not sure how to handle this, because even though God's spoken, he sees the big thing. He's like, what does this look like? And so, though he doesn't know exactly what it looks like, he does what he knows to do. He says, "God, I want a sign from you. This is you." And so he acts out in a way that he knows he can be obedient. He goes and gets a goat. He gets some bread, some unleavened bread, and offers it, puts it on a rock, and offers it to God as a sacrifice. And God shows up, and it says that flames came out of the rock and just devoured the goat and the food. And so you can imagine Gideon saw God respond to this. And then God says, "Okay, you've seen me, so now I want you to go." And your clan has put together, your family, extended family, has put together this place where they worship foreign idols, foreign gods. I want you to go destroy those. I want you to build a new altar to me and offer a sacrifice to me on it. And so Gideon responds in obedience. He's seen God work, and so he's responding to God. And he takes a step, and he does. He knocks it down, offers a sacrifice. At this point, his clan is ticked at him, so they're trying to kill him. God protects him. And so again, he sees God respond. And then God says, "Okay, you've started to develop this pattern of obedience. So now I want you to get an army together, and I want you to go and defend my people Israel." And so Gideon calls out all the Israelites, and there's about 32,000 of them. And they're getting ready to go challenge these 135,000, big army. And God says, "There's too many of you. I can't do it with this many of you." And so God eventually whittles it down to a group of 300 men. And he sends them out with trumpets and with torches inside of clay pots. And this is what happens. Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them, with torches inside. "Watch me," Gideon told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp, blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." So Gideon and 300 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they changed their guard. They blew their trumpets, broke the jars that were in their hands. And they yelled out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man was holding his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. So what do we take away from this? We see Gideon's example there. I think that sometimes when we go on a journey, when God is taking us on this journey, we can kind of see his overarching purpose. You know, with my father-in-law, you know, I know the end game, right? I know that what God really wants is for him to become a Christ follower.